So I am going to talk metrics. Thank you for having me because it's. I'm excited to talk to a group that thinks metrics are sexy because usually that doesn't happen, especially at home. So I'm going to be real quick and burn through these slides. Number one, it's all about the objective, right? Before you start any program, this is online, offline, any kind of marketing, what are you trying to do? And my job, a lot of times, is to convince our account service people or the client to say, think about this before we just go update a website. So these are just some examples of the objectives you might be trying to improve, but this is what you're going to measure against then later when you implement these activities. So, first tip, integrating your AdWords and your analytics. How many of you have actually done this? Better yet, how many have not done this yet? It's now an 8-step process. It used to be a lot simpler. You just kind of put your login into analytics, but now it's a little more complicated to link the two accounts. I'm not going to go through all 8 steps because it would probably take me the full 10 minutes to go through. But here's just kind of a sampling, and I did give you a link where if you haven't done this yet, you can check it out and get these integrated. Now, why are we doing that? Because paid search activity is tracked as a campaign. Like an offline media campaign, you know your spend, you know your impressions, you know what you're trying to do, and you can actually track it in Google Analytics. You're bringing in your impression cost, click data from AdWords, but then you can add a whole host of analytics data to your measurement. So time on site, specific conversions. Let's say a conversion is not a page where you placed your AdWords conversion script, but what you're considering a conversion is a PDF download or a chat that was initiated. You can track all those goals against your paid search campaigns that way. Again, paid search, fairly straightforward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. What I want to get to, let me back up. The 3 key metrics I look at in paid search, I take that cost data that I pulled in from AdWords, I'm using the visit data, and I'm using the conversion data. From there, I can calculate a whole host of metrics that are valuable to my clients. Cost per click, cost per acquisition in the case of conversion. I can even calculate ROI if I know the average value of what a conversion might be. We have a client who knows, let's say for chat, any chat that's initiated ends up being about $140 in business. Any downloaded white paper, $250. By having those values added to the goals, I can calculate true ROI on the cost of the campaign. So now, when you get to SEO, how many of you guys spend more time in SEO than paid search? It's a lot more difficult to measure and prove value to clients. So one of the things that I do, a lot of times I work with our SEO team, you're looking at pre and post measurement. It's a standard media measurement. You do it for TV, broadcast, advertising. You might do it with direct mail. You can do it with your organic search and look at, we implemented the new pages, or we implemented the number of new keywords and tagging efforts on this date, and here's what happened afterwards. In this case, hey, visits went up, great, people are finding us. Pages per visit went down, duration went down. So we brought in more people, maybe not as high quality as we had before. The other thing, looking at this kind of pre and post measurement, it's only going to work for either the organic in total or a small set of keywords or landing pages. You could create a filter for the keywords that you may be optimized for. The problem is in Google Analytics, your filter for a segment is limited. And you might be limited to 20, 30 keywords. You might have to start using regular expressions to get it all captured. It becomes difficult. You could filter down to landing pages that you were working on and see, did that landing page make a difference? But again, it's somewhat limited to what you can look at. So my one tip on SEO is using the advanced segments to drill into what your effort was. In this case, a segment of Any visitor that used 4 or more keywords in their search coming to the website. Pretty nasty regular expression, so I'm going to give you a link for that later. So in this case, we set up some advanced segments for those people that came in from a single keyword search, 2 to 3 keywords, or 4 or more. And then we can look at the traffic and the metrics on the site from there. In this case, interesting to know, 2 to 3 word keyword phrases drove the most traffic in terms of organic search. And there's the link in terms of, that'll bring you to a page that will give you 9 advanced segments that are key for any sort of analytics effort. So the second thing, you've probably heard a lot about not provided. Anybody have concerns over not provided? Okay. I've seen it anywhere from affecting 20% of searches up to 40, 50% of searches. What you're going to find, though, is the trends are still going to be the same. Now, one way to maybe get around the not provided issue is to integrate with webmaster tools and bring that into Google Analytics. Who here has done that? A lot fewer than integrating with AdWords. If you're using the async version of code on your site, you can integrate with webmaster tools. So you go to the site within the webmaster tools login, go to the site that you want to integrate with Google Analytics properties, and that'll give you the choice to add it. And what happens is you can now, under sources, there'll be search optimization. And so here you can see the number of query strings, or number of queries, search queries, how many impressions and how many clicks there actually were in this time frame. I'm looking at a couple different time frames. Apparently mismatched socks was a hot Christmas item in December. Who knew? So as I noted here, you can start to look at what pages, this shows query string. You can also see landing pages from the Webmaster Tools data. So you can start to see which pages are generating traffic from core search results, or what keywords aren't ranking as high as they should be. Maybe mismatched socks, you need to put more effort in December to get that ranking higher and drive even more traffic. The next thing that I do is treat SEO as a campaign. So my animations here a lot. This is a pretty big item. This is how you get to measure SEO similar to paid search. Look at the investment, look at your ad groups, look at your campaigns, and start to identify return on investment. So, using PPC, paid search, as your guide, if you were to download a set of campaigns, let's say you're going to optimize some landing pages around nutrition. Look at my paid search campaign that I have around nutrition. I'm going to download the top performing keywords from that campaign. And here's where you have to do a little data magic. And here's where APIs come in, which I know we're going to talk about a little later. Downloading that data and doing a little spreadsheet or database work. Here's the nasty little array formula. I can now group how many keywords, how many monthly searches I'm getting, or how many visits, whatever data I tend to pull down. And in this case, I'm adding a measure of relevance to the brand. How important is it? Instead of relevance, you could add competition or average rank, search rank. So what I end up creating is a bubble chart like this that starts to look at, okay, what keywords am I driving a lot of traffic from? How many keywords are driving that traffic? In the case of a client here, those are branded terms, so it's a lot fewer terms driving a ton of traffic. It takes me more keywords to drive the food category. I can start to do things on the site, optimize pages around food, for example, to try and move that bubble, increase the size. The smaller red bubble here, it's got a fair number, it's important to the business, but there's not a lot of keywords, not a lot of searches. That's an area, that set of keywords, that's what I want to work on my website, and start working on those pages. Like I mentioned, instead of relevance to business, I could have a competition metric, an average rank metric. If I was looking at conversions, for example, as my x-axis, this red dot up here might indicate high volume of traffic from a fair number of keywords, but they're not converting. That's going to tell me I need to look at the landing pages for those keywords. Where are they going? Where is that traffic going? How do I optimize those pages for conversion? Once you have those categories, you can take any metric that you're pulling down from Google and start to measure against different time periods. So I'm pulling keyword searches for across my categories for 2 different time frames. We put a lot of effort into in these small areas, small categories. Not a lot of keywords in these categories, but very important to the client, and we made an impact from one year to the next in terms of searches. I think actually in this case it was visits to the site. So this could be visits, number of keywords that are being searched, even impressions if you're pulling that data from the integrated webmaster tools. So, kind of real quick summary. These 5 items are things that you can implement in your own practice. If there's one thing on here that you aren't doing now that you're going to go back and do, then I think I've done my job for tonight. Any questions on this? I think I did it 11 flat.
Question up front?
Yeah, so you mentioned bringing Google Webmaster Tools data into analytics and using that as sort of a workaround around being provided. Some of the data that I've seen in Google Webmaster Tools and some of the things I've read, sort of August viewers kind of suggested that that is pretty crappy in terms of the accuracy of it. Have you noticed anything in your analysis of that?
Here's what I would say about Webmaster Tools. Don't use it to reconcile data, hard and fast data. It's trended. A lot of times I have to tell clients, it may not reconcile. It's not going to tie out. This isn't accounting. It's not going to tie out all the debits and credits. What you need to look for is trends. So if the trend of impressions and searches seems accurate, then you can compare that to what you're seeing in terms of keyword search volume, for example. We might compare the queries from the Webmaster data to the list of organic keywords, and if there's something out of place, that deserves investigation, right? If your top query from the Webmaster tools is one term, and that term doesn't even show up in your top 20 keywords, then something's going on. But if the trend is consistent, or there's a trend there, then I think it's okay to continue. And I'll be honest, I don't spend a ton of time in Webmaster tools. As the analytics director, I spend a lot of time in the overall site metrics, and I rely on a lot of the team members here to really dig into this. So they might have some other comments on that.
There's a question over the left.
Yeah.
How much have you been using multi-channel funnels for analytics and for looking at organic, or the attribution effects of organic types of opportunities to see for channel funnels?
We've been using it a little bit. To be honest, when I've looked at it, I haven't been surprised by the data. For the clients that I'm working on, I've seen mainly 2, maybe 3 steps in the funnel. And a lot of it tends to be the same channel. So I'm seeing organic, and then a conversion, or organic, maybe organic paid, or paid. I'm not seeing, at least for the clients that I'm using or not, a lot of differentiation between the channels. I think what's coming, and I'm really excited about universal analytics, because the multi-channel funnels there are going to cross not just the website, but be able to look at from mobile to desktop to tablet, and still apply that multi-channel funnel. If you don't know, what Google unveiled at their summit last October, and Jeff, I think, live blogged about this, universal analytics. They're trying to get rid of the idea of just your website and track visitor behavior from a device, basically, with a new cookie that they're implementing. So if I do a search on my phone, I get to a website, and I come back later on the desktop, they'll see that as one person and know that, okay, multi-channel funnel will tell me he came from organic search and then he came to direct because he just typed in. And it's going to, in addition to tracking across devices, you're going to be able to upload, in fact, this is in beta right now, I found it the other day, upload offline cost data. So you might be using your UTM variables to track banner ads and other type of activity. You can now upload the cost for those banner ads right into Google Analytics and get your cost per click, cost per conversion metrics right there, instead of taking it offline like you have to do now and taking your double click data and then your GA data and putting it together. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I will tell you right now that this is a brand new presentation, and I am so pumped to give it to you guys. So, yeah, brace yourself, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Anybody know what this number is right here?
It's big.
I can tell you that it's not my bank account. That's for sure. But what I can tell you is that this is the number of websites that contain a Google Analytics tracking script for analytics. 99% is the number of accounts that I have access to that when I originally got access to it was installed incorrectly. And not necessarily incorrectly, it's not that it wasn't tracking data, it's not that it was the tracking script wasn't there, but Google Analytics out of the box, you take the little the Google Analytics tracking code and you place it on your website and boom, you pull up your reports, it shows you how many visitors you have and it's great. But there's so much more to this data if you put in the right efforts to make sure that you're tagging it properly, making sure that you're bringing Google Analytics to the next level. Anybody know what this number is? 93%? 93% of people think that they're better than the average driver. That is impossible. That's not possible. And so when it comes to Google Analytics, I find a lot of people will tell me, yeah, we've got Google Analytics, we're tracking all this stuff, it's set up perfectly, and once I get in there, I realize, no, you're the 7%. You're below the average. So what I want to do today, my 99% number, I want to make you guys the 1%. The 1% that's really bringing Google Analytics to the next level, making sure that you're not missing anything. And no, not like that. I'm not going to make the 1% like that. So, thank you. So being in analytics, things tend to get really complicated really fast. And this has made me really appreciate simplicity. I like taking a step back and let's think about this in the most simplistic way we possibly can. And ultimately, when it comes to analytics, really all we're doing is we're trying to tell a story. As an SEO, you're trying to tell yourself, you're trying to build the story. You're looking at the data and you're saying, this keyword is performing this way, this campaign is performing this way, and analytics is all about telling that story. I want to show you a little metaphor here, and by the way, I invented this. Not the maze, the metaphor. So here's your maze, here's your website, and the visitor lands on the web page, so they start at the top. And ultimately, if they make it all the way through the maze, you have a conversion. Somebody has done something you want them to do. But oftentimes what ends up happening is, if Google Analytics is not installed correctly, all of a sudden your website starts to look like this. You're missing pieces, you're missing data, you don't have the information to tell the whole story. Sure, you can tell that the visitor landed on the page, but you don't know what happened right there. You know they converted, but you don't know what happened right there. So maybe that's, you're not tracking your outbound links. You have no idea how to tell if people are leaving or clicking on your outbound links. Maybe you're not tracking a newsletter sign up. Maybe you're not tracking social interactions. Maybe you're not tracking comments that are occurring on the website. Or worse, the worst case scenario, you're not tracking conversions either, which is really possible. One of the things I forgot to mention the 99% number that I showed up there. Rewind. I work at a social media agency. I run the measurement department over there, and I do a lot of analytics work. And a study came out a couple of months ago from the e-consultancy, I think it was BRD Media did it, and what they found is that they did a survey of 500 different major e-commerce websites, retailers, online retailers. And when they went in and did a formal audit of their Google Analytics, of their web analytics capabilities, they found that 80% of those online retailers did not have analytics set up right. They were inflating data, they weren't tracking the right data, they were missing data completely. That's what I want today to show you how to avoid. So, let the fun begin. So, when it comes to tagging, to me, really what this is, and this is my definition of it, the way I look at it is about generating additional data with your analytics. It's about getting a deeper understanding of the things that are happening on your website. So what I want to talk to you today is how to get to that 1%, or what are the steps, what are the things you need to be doing to get better data in your analytics. First thing that you want to do is you want to audit your website. You really want to take the time to go through and ask yourself, am I getting all of the information I'm looking for? The way I think about it is, if you can click on the website anywhere, you can track that with Google Analytics. There's so many, I mean, any place you click, whether it's a comment box, whether it's a Facebook like, a Twitter button, whatever it is, you can track that information. You can even track, with navigation, you've got navigation across the top and you've got navigation across the bottom. With proper tagging, you're going to be able to identify which navigation are people really using. You're going to know if what you put down there is really performing or not. So basically what this comes down to when you're doing the audit, which isn't necessarily tagging, but you're trying to identify the black spots in your base. You're trying to identify the pieces that you're missing to avoid this. We've all heard of garbage in, garbage out. The way I look at it is nothing in, nothing out. If you're not tracking the data, if you have those black spots and you don't have that information, you're not tracking that data, you can't even get to garbage in, garbage out because there's no garbage there. So, events. Batman. A coworker, I asked him, I said, hey, what's a good thing to put on an event slide like Google Analytics? He's like, I don't know, what about like a circus of tent? That's like an event. No, Batman's better. He bet me I couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. I just made $20. Paid speaking event now. So, events, think of these as the actions that happen on the page. There's so many things we can do on a website where we click on it, the URL, the page doesn't change. And when the page doesn't change, if you have a basic installation of Google Analytics, it's not going to track that interaction. It will not do it out of the box. So with events, you can go through and start tagging the different elements of the site to make sure you're getting that data. So here's an actual, this is actually a client example of mine, and here's what looks to be like a pretty standard e-commerce page. Obviously, we're going to be interested in knowing if people are buying or not, but what you're going to have here is what you're going to find is that there's so many things that happen on this website that are not being tracked right now. You have breadcrumbs at the top of the page. Google Analytics isn't going to tell you out of the box whether that's being tracked or not, or people are clicking on that. You've got a price match guarantee not being tracked. You've got previous and next item not being tracked out of the box. Pictures. We've got tabs underneath, so dynamic tabs, and we've got information on the right side. We've got social links, and we also have add to cart and add to wish list. Out of the box, those things do not track. So this report is actually from my company's website, SMC Pros. I've got about 350 different events that are being tracked on a basic agency page. Those are things that do not happen out of the box. So here's a small sample here. You'll see there's up in the top, the 34, you'll see the click logo. I know that's the home page, that's the logo up at the top, so people are clicking on that versus using the home button. I know that. I know if people are clicking on YouTube videos. I know if they're looking for any click that happens on the website, I know about it. And what's really funny, I noticed this when I was making this presentation. You can see my page right here. And then if you go like 3 up, you see something cool right there. There's a Rickroll on the bottom of our website. The Rickroll is more popular than me. Figure that out. But the idea here is so you have this information, you have this event level data now. Now it's your job to segment it out. So if I want to know, I want to see who's getting Rickrolled, I can segment that out and I can figure that out. That's what segments is about. It's about segmenting the data, understanding what the clicks are, and going from there. Custom variables, the Robin of tagging. I didn't make any money off of that one, sorry. Or I guess not sorry, don't feel bad for me is what I'm trying to say. So custom variables, think of this as a cookie you can use with Google Analytics to basically signal to you later that this person has performed a particular action or has done something on the website. It's additional code. So what this does is, this is another client example, it's a wallbedoutlet.com, and they sell Murphy beds, they're pretty cool. And what we were interested in knowing with this client example, we were interested in knowing if people interact with the Build-A-Bed system, so if you click on the colors up there, which by the way, all of those are being tracked with events, I know exactly which things people are clicking on in the Build-A-Bed system, but we're able to basically tag this visitor as having interacted with the Build-A-Bed, and what I can answer with that, information is, does that lead to sales? So the other example is where I use another custom variable is the request a sample. Here's somebody who, buying a bed online, buying a Murphy bed online is really a challenging thing, especially for like a large purchase. It's just hard to whip out the credit card, so it's challenging. So one of the things that we do is we allow people to order a sample of the material to see that it isn't, you know, IKEA-like. It's nice, it's good stuff. So what we were interested in knowing is, do the requests for samples, do they actually lead to conversions? Do they lead to sales? Does it impact that process? And what we were able to find is for example, is that the request a sample, I don't have the slide here that shows the e-commerce data, but this is showing me that people, here's 8 interactions, Build-A-Bed interactions, that requested a sample. And I thought this was really interesting because we see that we have 36 requests for samples, yet only 8 of them used this system up here. So now what I'm interested in is, what is the quality of the visitor? What's the whole reason this came up is that some of the samples, we were afraid that it wasn't quality visitors who were requesting them. By using custom variables, by being able to identify the returning visitors, I can answer, are these people who are requesting samples, are they coming back to the website, and what are they doing? Promise is the last Batman reference right here. We've already touched on goals already once before. Goals are everything. When it comes to Google Analytics, when it comes to really getting the most out of Google Analytics, it's imperative that you have these goals set up. But not just goals, you need really smart goals. And here's what I mean by that. So here's a business, TrueScribe, another client of mine. They do whiteboard animation. And what we do with this one, with this particular client example, is obviously it's not an e-commerce site, but I track it with e-commerce Google Analytics code, which is something that doesn't happen out of the box. So basically what we do is, when somebody downloads a white paper, when they request for contact, when they perform specific actions, we'll actually fire the Google Analytics e-commerce tracking code. The reason we do this is because we get really cool stuff like this. So here's the data for people who have downloaded white papers from TrueScribe. So we see that most of them happens in the first day, but we also see that 9% take more than a day, and it allows you to drill into that further. We can start to see the different channels for downloading a white paper. We're not looking at it as just a single event, we're looking at it as, what is the process to download that white paper? And this is going to enable you to make really smart decisions in terms of which SEO campaigns are working, which paid advertising campaign is working, and what are the actions that the traffic is doing on your site. And the whole idea is that when you start tagging, when you start adding events, and you start adding custom variables, you start to eliminate the boxes. You start to get a fuller view of your website so you can make smarter decisions. And with that, welcome to 1%. Tag your ed. Any questions? Yes?
Can you recommend any sources for good naming conventions for event tracking, goals, and...
Yeah, absolutely. Like naming, in terms of the event, like the code for the event, in terms of like the naming convention for it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So the way I look, so event code is basically broken down into 3. I'm assuming that's probably what you're going to use the most. That's what I typically use the most. Custom variables are important, but I use events a lot more. And there's basically 3 levels. Think of it as a hierarchy. You've got the category, action, and label. And really, it really doesn't matter what the naming convention is, as long as you maintain the hierarchy in the same way across all of the different categories. Because what ends up happening, I'm sure, as we start to talk about APIs, if you don't have those set up in a way that makes sense, when you try to extract data out there, it's going to be really, really, really messy. And so really for the naming conventions, I typically use things like download, click, navigation. Really, I find it really helpful to actually whiteboard all of that out, basically lay all of the different categories out, and then make sure you stick with those, and you also keep the case the same. Otherwise, it's going to make your reports really messy. Does that help? Cool. Other questions? Yeah.
How long does the latency last for Google Analytics for a cookie?
Yeah, there's two pieces of that. 30 days is typically what is the standard. Obviously, when they return to the site, that cookie, there's different things that happen there. But also, we haven't quite figured out the cross-channel piece yet, so it's a little messy there. But yeah. Any questions? Yeah, over here.
Tagging properly is a major pain point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I spent a lot of time in the weeds looking after it. Now, out of the box, does Google Analytics use asynchronous code?
Out of the box, yes.
Out of the box, yes.
Yep.
Okay, and what are the advantages of asynchronous over synchronous? Just for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So originally they're referred to as the async code and then the traditional code. And if you haven't updated your code in a while, there's a chance that you may have basic tracking code. There's a couple different things you get from it. Number one, asynchronous is supposed to make your website a little bit quicker in terms of loading, so it's less resource intensive on the browser. Honestly, I don't think it's enough to really make a difference. That's why I wouldn't switch. The reason I switch to async code, if it's not there, comes down to there's reports in different pieces like multi-channel funnels, and also site speed, and some of the additional reports in Google Analytics require the asynchronous code. It's really important to stay on top of how updated your code is. They're not even, I can't remember exactly what they're calling. I think is it in-page analytics now, but they added an additional piece of code there to make yep. So the code is changing. I never use the async code out of the box just the way it is. I'm always adjusting bounce rates, setting site speed. There's so much. I mean, I use a lot of jQuery to automatically tag things. So for example, if a site has a bunch of PDFs on it, I've got code that'll automatically bind to the PDFs or the social links. So there's ways you can make that easier, but it's definitely out of the box. The code is, in my opinion, it's kind of limiting. You don't get the full picture. You never do.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
What do you think of the new Google Tag Manager?
Yeah, good. I've spent way too much time playing around with it, trying to get it to work. Not that it doesn't work. It's limiting in a couple different ways. The Tag Manager is great when you've got when you need to worry about going through a development channel. So, and what I mean by that is I've got a few clients who are a lot larger, and so for me to get approval for like code changes is really difficult. You need to go through a testing process, and it just gets really messy really quickly. But the problem with the Tag Manager is that there's still going to be elements in terms of tagging that you're going to have to go and do. So Tag Manager does a great job of handling your basic tracking code, but it doesn't help you with the tagging on the website. You're still going to need to go through and identify those different events. So as much as it solves one problem, it kind of leaves the tagging issue. The Tag Manager, that's what's kind of funny, it's kind of ironic actually, it's not going to help you with that. So I would use it if you've got a development, a gap there, so it's harder for you to make code changes.
Yeah, is it more for like sites that don't have analytics on them at all, or if let's say the site's already got analytics on it and maybe it's not on every page, or maybe they have conversion tags set up for AdWords but they don't have analytics tags. Are you able to use the Tag Manager to kind of then just update everything, or should you stay away from it if it's already got kind of like halfway done? Or
yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Boy, in that instance, you definitely don't want to run the risk of having two Google Analytics code on a page, because that'll really throw you off. In that situation, if it's a large website, a tag manager makes a lot of sense. In fact, I've got a client who's doing an Adobe Omniture Site Catalyst implementation, and the development cycle was so long that I use Google Tag Manager to actually run the S code for Omniture. So that's where I use it, and it's when you have development challenges is when I would use it. Large sites, development challenges, that's when you're going to want to use it, but you're still going to have to do some tagging. Yeah.
If you're custom tagging events on like an e-commerce page or a site that's got thousands and thousands of pages, can you apply those codes to the template at the template level, or do you go in and actually tag each link manually?
Yeah. It kind of depends on the circumstance of what it is and how the template is set up. So for example, if you've got a standard footer in like a WordPress site, you've got a standard footer and you've got your outbound links and your social icons down there. It's easy enough to go into there and just tag it just there, and then you're good for the whole site. So if you can get away with it that way, that's how I would do it. But what I wouldn't do is, if it's a larger site, that's where I typically use like jQuery or something like that to bind to the events. If there's like PDFs throughout the site, I had a site with like something crazy, like 250 YouTube videos throughout the entire website. And so for that one, there's no way I was going to go through and tag every single one of those. So that's where you're going to want to build a piece of code or figure out on the back end of how you can bind to those elements automatically. Otherwise, you will spend forever tagging. And we don't want that. As much as it's cool, we don't want that. So, cool. Anything else? Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. What I'm going to be talking about is actually, it's going to be less about the API and more about this tool that I've been using. When I first got into SEO, at an agency in St. Paul. First I graduated from Emory University in 2010 in Atlanta, Georgia. And first SEO gig was in the agency in St. Paul. And then now I'm working for Josh as the SEO specialist at Western College. And so I came from not so much of a technical background as many of you guys might be coming from. So I needed to find a way to automate the process that I was doing. So before we get cut off a lot of the, okay, this looks like a Pac-Man game or something, but this is a framework that I work around in terms of efficiency. So I look for, or I want to spend less time, this is capturing data, and more time driving action, right? And so in the first two talks, they were talking about asking these different types of questions like why, how, and that's what you want to get to the bottom line, right? And so my problem was when I first got into Rasmussen College was I was entrusted with this monthly report. And it was just enormous. Like I wasn't used to the data and having to go switch back and forth from analytics into Excel. But this is the philosophy that I had. If I want to save time, I want to save time to ask the questions, because ultimately we are trying to figure out the people behind the data. And so ultimately you want to find purpose, right? Find purpose in the data that you're pulling. This is my favorite sports team by far. This is the Robinson and Tim Duncan. This is when they first won their championship. And I was very proud in that moment. But you want to find purpose. The reason why you want to find purpose in your data is because then you become very deliberate with what you're looking for. And that's immense because once you're deliberate about your data, then you also have the goal that you are reaching and striving for. And the problem is, because we have an X amount of time, X amount of hours in a day, opportunity cost is huge, right? Let's say you have a deadline for 3 hours or 4 hours, the less time you have, the more costly every minute is. And so I wanted to make sure that I was spending less time populating my reports and more time writing up insights. And so if I spend more time capturing data, I lose. I lose, my team loses, my boss loses, and then the entire organization loses because we're not driving any sort of change, any action. So automation. So I was looking for automation. I was trying to figure out, I was reading about blog posts everywhere to see how I can automate this process. And coming from someone that didn't really do any coding or anything like that, I was looking for some sort of tool, right, to get the access to the API and to the analytics. This should be helpful for those that are not technical. So automation is your wingman, right, or your wingwoman to unlock insight. Because now you have more time to multitask when you drag and drop and just let it, populate. And while you're doing that, you can be doing other things that are driving action and making change. So this was the original, it's like the format, but this was the step that I had to take to populate my monthly reports. So first, I had to check the boxes of 4 advanced segments because that's the maximum amount of segments you can view. So I had to check that, wait for the progress bar, but because we had so many segments, I had to constantly watch the bar go left and right, and I was just pissed off. And so third, you have to memorize the 4 values of the metric that you want. So at this time, we do visits, conversions, and conversion rates. So I have to memorize the visits, go back, Alt-Tab to the spreadsheet, fill in those cells, and then Alt-Tab back to GA, uncheck those segments, and I mean, it was disastrous, right? So I calculated it to see how many steps I was taking. So at 5 times 60, we have around 60, 65 segments, divided by the maximum views you have for each segment, or for each view in Google Analytics, which is 4. So 5 times 15, 75 steps. Then we have 3 different metrics. So 75 times 3 is 225 steps. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. Granted, each of these steps here takes, not maybe like 10 seconds or 15 seconds, but it does make a difference. So I definitely needed a solution. And this was after SEO Tools. So SEO Tools is an Excel API, or is an Excel extension that you can just add, which I'll include a link at the end, which gives you an instruction on how to do it. So this enabled me to, 1, copy and paste the formula into the top cell of my report. 2, drag the fill handle, or double click, or whatever you want to do. And while waiting for the process to finish, I work on other tasks. It's 3 steps, right? 3 steps. So the old process was 225 steps. And now with SEO Tools, because it accesses the Google Analytics API to do this, it takes me 9 steps to finish this report. And I felt unstoppable. Right? I felt like I was on top of the world. And so it's amazing because that's why I really respect the technical people. They're able to just make magic happen for us, for people like me. And this SEO tool, the way that it works is that it accesses, like I said, the Google Analytics API. So you don't have to even leave Excel at all. You can stay on Excel, not have to exchange browsers or switch up to browsers, and pretty much pull. So an API stands for those that don't know, API stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's like a fancy way of saying that it's a tool that allows you to communicate with any other external service, which in this case, for my case, was Google Analytics. And everyone can have access to that as long as you have the member ID or like the unique ID that you have and attachment and credentials. And once you have that, I mean, you're unlocked to all this information that you need. So this, I'm not going to go into logging in and installing it because that'll be the links when we get to that later on. But if you successfully install it, that should appear in your Excel, the ribbon, SEO tool. So you can already tell you can do on-page, off-page content, Majestic SEO, SEO Analytics, I don't use that, Google Analytics, you can scrape using this, you can check your social metrics, everything, right? It's ridiculous. This is a really powerful tool because you have access to all these different services, right? Without having to leave Excel. And this is a little list, I did a screenshot of what is underneath the on-page, link count, HTML, check out what the canonical is. I mean, it's highly useful. But because of time, I only go into the Google Analytics. So where do I start? First, you have to find the unique GA ID for each segment. So for some people, it might not take too much if you only have like 5 advanced segments. But I think it was Dan who was talking about just segment out everything, right? And so when you have hundreds of segments, which we have 60 something for that, but this is going to take a long time. This is where the initial investment is. Because you have to, actually there's a way through the management API in the Google Analytics, which I wasn't able to figure out. If you guys know how to do that, I'd love to figure out how to do that. But so my way of doing it was I had to insert the formula for each segment. And when you click on the Google Analytics icon, that means more on that, this menu will appear. And this, you can select the profile that you need. You can select the metrics, the date, or the time frame, which is, I usually do it by last month. You can do it by week. You can do custom if you want. Dimension, I don't really use a dimension, and then the segments. So all those segments that you've created will be in this tool here. And for in this example, I'll be doing just the non-paid search traffic. And 2 things you want to make sure that you do is you want to exclude the header as a result and select the radio button for formula. The reason being is if you don't exclude the headers and result, you won't be able to drag and drop, right? It's because the formatting is off. You might have to delete it, copy paste, and you have to shift things out of place, and it's just really annoying. And also for the formula, you need to see what the output is, the way that Google Analytics API reads the formula to give you that value. And also within the formula, they'll reveal or show you what the unique ID is for your segments. So this is what happens after you inserted the value. This is what they spit back out. And this is a nested formula. But here you can see the GA, which is the account profile. Then you have the metric that you're looking at. The two things that we want to be that is of interest is the date range and the unique segment GA ID, because that is what we're going to be breaking down. So that in the next slides, or in a couple slides, we'll be using the ampersands and Excel references in order to make sure that this drag and drop magic happens. And also, after you've pulled all of the unique IDs in for all your segments, I suggest you put it into a table so that you can use Excel to do its magic and drag and drop. And this is the way that I've done it. I'm sure there's other people that have done it differently. This was just I just made those numbers up, and this is for a church that I attend. I just thought of what segments I would do quickly, and that's what I came up with for a little bit. So this is the original formula, and this here is a revised formula. All I'm doing is I'm referencing each of those cells, and I'm locking them using Excel references. Hopefully in the SlideShare or whatever, you guys can take a look at that and use it for yourself, because it took me a little bit of time to figure it out, but I did, and it works. So now this is just the date and just the GAID section. So I don't know how many of you guys know how to use Excel references, but you just F4 on the cell in question, right? So for example, over there you have API A3, so it's calling the sheet that's titled API. So if you hit F4 once, it's going to do an absolute reference, which means that when you're copying down a formula, that cell is locked in. So as you're dragging, dropping, whatever you want to do, it stays on that cell. And then the second one that I use is a mixed reference. You can either lock the column or you can lock the row. So depending on where you put the dollar sign in front of, so you can hit it twice or you can hit it 3 times. And I use absolute reference for everything except for the only variable that's changing, which is the unique ID. So I just did that for the month, the day, the year, and so forth. And so all you have to do is drag, drop, and lock it, right? You put it up onto the top cell, the fill handle, drag it down, you're done, right? Easy. And this is what we call like a hack, right? For me, it would be a hack because I just saved a lot of time. I've saved 216 steps for myself. And this was amazing. I gave myself a pat on the back. Two things that you need to make sure that you do. You want to save your Excel formulas because you don't want to rewrite the formulas every single time. I mean, even if you have it memorized, it's going to be annoying just having to do it. So save it either in a notepad, or what I do is I just save it in a text box within the same spreadsheet. So I have easy access to that. Second, you want to copy and paste the values. Now, the one issue is that if you don't copy and paste paste special the values, what's going to happen is when you exit the program, or when you exit Excel and you reopen it, it's going to recalculate it again. And you're going to have to sit there and look at the processing. It's going to, depending on how many segments you have, it can take 5 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour, which is crazy. And so imagine you go to where you're ready to drive action, right? You're ready to look at the story behind the data, and you see a processing at 1%, 2%. I mean, it's a huge buzzkill, right? So once you have that, you get your groove on, right? Because now you have all the time in the world to figure out why people are doing what they're doing on our website. And so I found this random picture of, and this is at a family event. I think this is on like a Tumblr or something like that. But,
I'm at a party with you.
Yeah. So this is how I felt. I didn't do this exactly. And then so these are the links that I provided. So the first one is the SEO Tools for Excel. It's created by Niels Bosma, and I found it out initially from SEO Mods, Distilled, SEO Gadget. I believe someone else tweeted out, but Richard Baxter talked about it. They were just, just giving high marks on this tool, just because you don't have to leave at all. It's completely just so efficient. Then the other one is a Google Chrome plugin, straight to Google Analytics. So if you guys use Google Chrome, what this does is rather than having to log into your Google Analytics like every time, or at least every session, you have to log in once, and once let's say you bookmark Google Analytics, you click it and it takes you straight to your profiles, or straight to your accounts. Yes, it doesn't take too much time to log in, but it's super convenient when you use it. And then these are the 2 blog posts that I read before I decided to get SEO Tools. And the thing is, SEO Tools is free. So, I mean, if you don't have a proprietary tool right now, or if you're looking to do site audits, if you're looking to just do some quick analysis or a quick correlation, you should use SEO Tools, because what happens is, when you're looking at the ribbon, you can combine your analytics data to your on-page data, or you can even look up the page rank, you can look up whatever it is. I mean, this tool is extremely powerful. So I hope that would save you time and really find the wide range of data and just pick us up. Thank you.
Get you guys back up. We have about 10 minutes for any other lingering questions. After 4 beers, you finally thought of something.
I'll tell you anything now.
But please, but how about one more round of applause for everything we said? I will say too, before anybody fires away, we are constantly seeking speakers for search snippets. So if you have a desire to speak on something, please let any of the board members know it all. The basic format of this is we want local people that want to share their knowledge. You've never spoken before or presented before. Like, this is a great atmosphere. People are liquored up. They're not going to be hard on you. So really, it's a very accepting group. We've been very fortunate. Some people delivered some amazing information. But if you want to dip your toe in the water, like, that's what we want to have happen here. You will never progress if it is a passion of yours to be able to share your knowledge or to share those experiences unless you get started. So please let any one of us know. We'd be happy to try to work you in the mix over the year. We have a number of opportunities.
I'd just like to add to that, if you know anything about display and retargeting, that's a topic that I really love to have you. So drop
March.
Reach out, email me.
All right, super. Anybody have a question? Go ahead.
This is for Shani, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I got 2 questions actually. Where do you find your unique ID for your segments?
So you have to actually, the way that I done it is you have to insert the formula. So when you go to the cell, you have to select all those options, and then they'll spit out that equal the dump formula. And you'll see the GA ID.
My second question is for Webmaster Tools. Have you ever, or if you have any tools, or have you messed around with any of the IP or API data of getting stuff out of there? Because right now for your search query data, it only dates back for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So everything after that you lose, or everything back from today 3 months ago you lose. So have you ever come up with, or is there anything out there that you've tracked to kind of log and keep all that data?
I personally haven't. I don't know if you guys have an answer to that. Yeah, I don't really use Webmaster Tools too much, except for indexing, checking out the health.
Okay, cool.
We've used something like that, or my advice is you download Webmaster Tools data monthly and keep it in an external database.
For Shini, so I really want to use SEO tools for myself, and I use Mac. As far as I know, to get on Flash
Can you repeat his question?
He has a Mac and he's wondering if it's compatible.
I've tried to use SEO tools for Excel on a Mac, and just nothing happens.
Scott, I've got the tool. We'll talk tomorrow.
Virtual machines.
How are you using Straightbox?
Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a really strong community on there, so you might have to just check the forums. They're constantly updating things, so I don't have a Mac, so
I think Excellent Analytics works. I'm pretty sure there's a version that's a Mac there. There's a big community around that one too. I'm pretty sure there's got to be one out there for